The security
Officer, the
cameras
readings are
never
critical.
lied,
Show
but
me.
Dr.
Here,
Renna wished
energy
they would.
levels are spiking. I
She
see
sat
it.
in the monitoring room, her blue-gray fingers tapping against the display as she reviewed the footage for the third time. The timestamp read 300 station time, and there he was again. Ambassador David Reed, hunched over his workstation in the human quarters, exactly where he had been 12 hours ago. Renna pulled up the wider timeline. 17 days. For 17 consecutive days, the human ambassador had maintained this pattern. Work, brief meal, work, minimal sleep, repeat. She cross-referenced the data with the other humans on station. The pattern held across all of them. Something was deeply wrong. The Galactic Council had extended an invitation to humanity 3 months ago. First contact had gone smoothly, almost too smoothly. Humans were pleasant, intelligent, and eager to cooperate. But now, as the provisional membership period continued, Renna noticed troubling signs everywhere she looked. She pulled up another camera feed. Patricia Okonkwo, the human engineer assigned to repair the station's tertiary power coupling. The repair should have taken 3 shifts with a rotating crew. Patricia had been at it for 40 straight hours, refusing every offer of relief. Renna's concern deepened into alarm. She contacted the station medical officer, hoping for some insight. When Dr. Victor Hollies appeared on her screen, she noticed immediately that his eyes were red-rimmed, his hair disheveled. "Dr. Hollies, I need to discuss a medical concern about your species," Renna began carefully. The human doctor smiled, which confused her. Nothing about this situation was amusing. "What can I help you with, Dr. Renna?" "When did you last sleep?" she asked directly. Hollies glanced at something off-screen. About 36 hours ago. We had that emergency in Bay 7, and then I needed to update the medical database with human-specific protocols, and then there were those supply inventories to review." Renna felt her blood chill. "You have been awake for 36 hours. "Give or take," Holly said casually. "Why, is something wrong?" Everything was wrong. The Thalassian people, Renna's species, required a minimum of 8 hours rest per cycle. Most species on the station needed between 6 and 14 hours. The idea of going 36 hours without sleep was incomprehensible. "Dr. Hollies, are you unwell? Is your species suffering from some condition that prevents proper rest?" Now Hollies looked genuinely confused. "No, I'm fine, just busy. Is there a specific medical issue you wanted to discuss?" Renna realized the humans did not even recognize their own symptoms. This was worse than she thought. "I need to call a medical council," she said firmly. "Please do not continue working. You need rest immediately." "I appreciate the concern, but I really do have to finish these protocols," Hollies replied. "How about we schedule something for later this week?" After he disconnected, Renna sat in stunned silence. The human had just refused medical intervention. She began compiling her data, pulling footage and records from all human personnel on station. The evidence painted a horrifying picture. Humans averaged between 4 and 6 hours of sleep per cycle. Some went multiple days with even less. They consumed enormous quantities of a stimulant drug they called caffeine. They showed elevated stress hormones consistently, yet they claimed to be healthy. Renna sent out an urgent call to medical representatives from every species on station. By the next morning, 12 different doctors and xenobiologists had gathered in the medical assessment chamber. "Thank you all for coming," Renna began, displaying her compiled data on the central holographic screen. "We have a crisis. The humans are experiencing what I believe to be a collective medical emergency." A felid doctor, whose cat-like species required 16 hours of rest per cycle, hissed in dismay. "These numbers cannot be accurate. No sentient being could function on such minimal rest." "I have verified everything 3 times," Renna assured them. "Look at this footage." She showed them Patricia, still working on the power coupling after her 40-hour marathon. She has refused all offers of relief. She insists she is fine. An insectoid physician chittered nervously. Perhaps their chronometers are calibrated differently. Maybe they are counting time in a different measurement. I accounted for that, Rena said. These are standardized galactic hours. The humans are genuinely operating on a fraction of the rest any known species requires. The council reviewed case after case. Human traders in the commercial district working 20-hour shifts. Human scientists conducting research through multiple cycles. Human security personnel maintaining alertness far beyond what should be possible. They must have some neurological damage, suggested a reptilian doctor. Perhaps their sleep regulation centers are malfunctioning. Or a cultural practice that is harming them, added another. Some species have harmful traditions they refuse to abandon. Rena pulled up medical scans. Their brains show unusual activity patterns but no obvious damage. When I confronted Dr. Hollies, he insisted this was normal for humans. That is classic denial, the Felid doctor said. They do not recognize they are unwell. The council debated for hours. The conclusion was unanimous and grave. Humans were suffering from a species-wide condition that prevented them from recognizing their own exhaustion signals. Without intervention, they would work themselves to death. We must implement protective measures immediately, Rena declared. For their own safety, we need to enforce mandatory rest periods. Station security will ensure compliance. The medical council drafted emergency protocols. Humans would be restricted to 8-hour work periods followed by mandatory 8-hour rest cycles. Security would monitor compliance. It was for their own good. Ambassador Reed was summoned to the medical chamber to be informed of the new regulations. He arrived looking tired but alert, carrying a datapad filled with treaty documentation. Ambassador, we need to discuss your health, Rena began gently. My health is fine, Reed replied, confused. Is this about the standard medical clearances? I submitted those last week. This is about the dangerous pattern of sleep deprivation affecting your entire species, Rena said. We cannot allow you to continue harming yourselves. Effective immediately, all humans are subject to mandatory rest protocols. Reed blinked. I'm sorry, mandatory rest protocols. 8 hours work, 8 hours rest, enforced by station security, Rena explained. We have documented that humans are unable to recognize their own exhaustion. This is a medical emergency. Dr. Rena, I appreciate the concern, but humans can function just fine on less sleep when necessary, Reed said carefully. That is the illness speaking, the Felid doctor interjected. You cannot see your own deterioration. Before Reed could respond, alarms blared throughout the station. A priority distress signal flashed across every screen. A mining colony, 72 hours from catastrophic asteroid impact. 2,400 lives at stake. Automated defenses had failed. Immediate evacuation required. The rescue coordinator's voice crackled through the speakers. All available ships to emergency deployment. We have 68 hours before the nearest rescue fleet arrives. Standard protocols estimate we can evacuate 1,800 colonists before impact. Reed stood immediately. Human ships can help. We have 3 rescue vessels docked here. Absolutely not, Rena said firmly. You are all under medical quarantine. We cannot allow sick humans to operate rescue missions. 1,800 out of 2,400 means 600 dead, Reed said quietly. Our crews can save them all. You are not well enough, Rena insisted. Reed met her eyes. Dr. Rena, you are about to learn something important about humans. We do not have an off switch, not when people need us. The crisis center filled quickly. Representatives from a dozen species crowded around the central holographic display, watching the mining colony's desperate situation unfold in real time. The asteroid field moved steadily toward the colony, an unstoppable wave of destruction. The countdown clock showed 71 hours and 42 minutes. Patricia Okonkwo stood beside Ambassador Reed, her engineering mind already calculating trajectories and fuel consumption rates. James, one of the human pilots, studied the rescue fleet deployment schedules on his datapad, his jaw tight. The rescue coordinator, a methodical Thalassian named Vorn, outlined the situation with clinical precision. We have 43 ships within range. Standard rescue protocols require crew rotation every 12 hours with mandatory 8-hour rest periods. Each ship can transport 60 colonists per run. Given travel time and crew limitations, we can execute 30 full cycles before impact. That saves 1,800, Patricia said. What about the other 600? Vorn's expression remained neutral. Acceptable losses under the circumstances. We cannot risk crew safety by exceeding operational parameters. Unacceptable, Reed said firmly. Human crews can operate continuously. We can save everyone. Dr. Renna stepped forward, her medical authority clear. Ambassador, your crews are already compromised. We documented your species' inability to maintain safe rest cycles. Sending exhausted humans into a crisis situation would be criminally negligent. We are not exhausted, Patricia interjected. We are ready. You cannot recognize your own impairment, the Felid doctor added. Your judgment is already affected. Reed pulled up calculations on the main display. 3 human ships. Each holds 80 colonists. We can run continuous rotations without the standard rest breaks. Our crews will sleep in 4-hour shifts while maintaining 20-hour active periods. The math works. All 2,400 colonists survive. The room erupted in objections. Multiple voices overlapped, all expressing the same fundamental concern. Humans could not possibly sustain such a schedule. It violated every known principle of biological necessity. You would kill yourselves trying, Vorn said bluntly. I cannot authorize a rescue mission that becomes a mass casualty event. Dr. Hollies entered the crisis center, medical bag in hand. I will be on one of the ships monitoring crew health in real time. If anyone shows signs of dangerous impairment, we will abort. You are the one who has been awake for 36 hours, Renna reminded him sharply. You are Exhibit 1 in why humans cannot be trusted to self-assess. 72 hours, Hollies corrected absently, checking his chronometer. The Bay 7 emergency was 3 days ago. The Felid doctor made a sound of pure distress. You prove our point. 72 hours without sleep is incompatible with life. I took a 6-hour nap yesterday, Hollies said defensively, and I am perfectly capable of performing my duties. Patricia moved to the display, her fingers flying across the holographic controls. Look at the numbers. Human ships have faster engines and can handle tighter maneuvers. We can cut the travel time by 18%. Combined with continuous operations, we make 38 full cycles instead of 30. That is 2,240 colonists. Factor in some double loading on the final runs and we get everyone. Factor in human crew collapse from exhaustion and you get everyone killed, Vorn countered. James spoke up for the first time. During the New Singapore disaster on Earth, rescue crews operated for 96 consecutive hours. Over 10,000 people were pulled from collapsed structures. Not a single rescue operator died from exhaustion. Earth disasters are not relevant to space operations, an insectoid physician argued. They are relevant to human capability, James replied calmly. We have done this before. We know our limits. The debate intensified. Medical data was presented and disputed. Human historical records were examined and dismissed as exaggerations. The clock continued its relentless countdown, 70 hours and counting. Renna found herself in an impossible position. Every instinct screamed that pushing humans into continuous operations was dangerous, yet 600 lives hung in the balance. She looked at the determined faces of the human crew members. They showed no hesitation, no fear, only absolute certainty that they could do what was needed. "If I allow this," Rena said slowly, "you will be monitored constantly. Any sign of performance degradation, and you will be pulled from operations immediately." "Agreed," Reed said without hesitation. "And after the rescue, you will submit to complete medical evaluation and supervised recovery," Rena continued. "Done," Patricia confirmed. Vorn shook his head. "I cannot support this plan. The risk is too great." "The risk of losing 600 lives is greater," Reed said quietly. "We are volunteers. We understand what we are undertaking. Please let us try." The room fell silent. Every species represented had different biological needs, different limitations, different understandings of what was possible, but they all understood the weight of 600 lives. Rena made the decision that would haunt and fascinate her for years to come. Approval granted. Human crews are authorized for continuous rescue operations under medical observation. The Felid doctor protested vehemently. Other council members joined in, but Vorn, despite his reservations, began coordinating the expanded rescue effort. The decision was made. Patricia, James, and Dr. Hollies moved immediately to their ships. Other human crew members joined them, moving with practiced efficiency. Within 30 minutes, 3 human rescue vessels had launched toward the doomed mining colony. Rena watched them go, medical monitoring equipment tracking every human biosign. Heart rates were elevated but steady. Stress hormones showed typical pre-mission spikes. Nothing indicated imminent collapse. "They will fail," the Felid doctor said beside her. "Biology does not negotiate." "Perhaps," Rena replied, her eyes fixed on the departing ships. "Or perhaps we do not fully understand human biology." The countdown clock showed 68 hours and 17 minutes. The longest watch of Rena's life had begun. She would not sleep until she knew whether human determination could overcome what every other species considered impossible. In the darkness of space, 3 human ships accelerated toward a desperate race against time and physics. Inside those ships, crews prepared for what they did best, not giving up when others needed them. The galaxy was about to learn that humans meant exactly what they said. They had no off switch, not when lives were at stake. Hour 18 of the rescue operation, and the human ships maintained perfect rhythm. Dock, load, launch, repeat. Patricia's vessel, designated Rescue 1, had completed 6 full cycles without a single deviation from schedule. In the observation deck, Dr. Rena stared at the biometric displays with growing disbelief. Human heart rates remained elevated, stress hormones climbed steadily, but cognitive performance showed no decline. The numbers defied everything she understood about biological systems under strain. "They should be deteriorating by now," the Felid doctor muttered, his whiskers twitching with agitation. "No species maintains peak performance at hour 18 without rest." Rena zoomed in on the video feed from Rescue 1. Patricia sat in the pilot seat, running pre-flight checks with the same precision she had shown on the first run. Her movements were crisp, her responses immediate. Behind her, 2 crew members slept in compact bunks, their rest periods timed with military precision. "Watch this," Rena said, replaying footage from 30 minutes earlier. A crew member named Sarah had finished her shift and walked to her bunk. She was asleep within 90 seconds, her body dropping into rest mode as if someone had flipped a switch. "Combat napping," Dr. Hollies had called it when Rena asked. Humans in high-stress professions learn to sleep instantly when given the chance. Every minute counts. Hour 24 arrived. On the observation deck, alarms chimed softly. The first alien crew shift reached their mandatory rest threshold. Ships began rotating personnel, precious time lost to crew changes. The human ships never slowed. Rescue 2, piloted by James, completed its 8th cycle. Rescue 3 maintained the same pace. The gap between human performance and standard protocols widened with each passing hour. Vorn, the rescue coordinator, checked his calculations repeatedly. They are beating our projections by 42 minutes per cycle. If they maintain this pace through hour 48, we save an additional 300 colonists. If they maintain this pace, the insectoid physician emphasized, we have never observed any species sustain such operations. Collapse is inevitable. Rena listened to the communication channels between human ships. The chatter was constant, professional, and increasingly laced with dark humor. Rescue 2, your landing looked like my grandmother's parking. Patricia's voice crackled over the speaker. Rescue 1, your grandmother can park better than you can fly, James shot back. Children behave, Dr. Hollies interjected from Rescue 3. We have colonists to save and reputations to maintain. Laughter echoed across the channels. Aliens in the observation deck exchanged confused glances. How could humans joke while operating at the edge of their endurance? Hour 32. Rena documented everything. The way humans consumed caffeine like it was water. The way they encouraged each other with simple phrases. "We got this" appeared in communication logs over 100 times. A mantra, a promise, a statement of collective will. She pulled up historical human records, diving deeper than before. Persistence hunting, marathon running, ultra-endurance competitions. Humans had not just survived on Earth. They had evolved to outlast everything else on their planet. They hunted by chasing prey until the animal collapsed from exhaustion, Rena read aloud from an anthropological report. Humans would track a single target for days, never stopping, until their prey simply could not run anymore. The Felid doctor shuddered. That is terrifying. That is effective, Rena corrected. Humans are not the fastest or strongest, but they simply do not stop. Hour 38 brought the first sign of strain. Sarah, on Rescue 1, miscalculated a docking approach by 0.3 degrees. Patricia immediately took over, guiding the ship in manually. The error was corrected in seconds. Rescue 1 status check, Vorn called immediately. Sarah is moving to rest rotation early, Patricia responded calmly. Mike is taking her position. We remain on schedule. The humans had implemented a buddy check system. Each crew member monitored the others for signs of dangerous fatigue. When someone showed even minor performance dips, they were rotated to rest immediately. The system was informal, instinctive, and remarkably effective. Hour 42. Dr. Hollies transmitted medical data to Rena. Human crews were running on pure determination and careful physiological management. They were tired, undeniably so, but they were not broken. Look at their cortisol levels, Hollies said during a brief communication window. Elevated but stable. They are stressed but managing it. Their bodies are adapting to the sustained demand. Adapting or failing, Rena challenged. Adapting, Hollies said firmly. Human bodies are designed for this. We are persistent specialists. Give us a goal and enough reason to care, and we will find a way. Hour 48 arrived with mathematical precision. The halfway point. 1,200 colonists were now safe on evacuation transports. 1,200 more remained. The alien rescue ships had completed their maximum safe cycles and began standing down for extended crew rest. The human ships never paused. Rena watched Sarah wake from her rest period exactly 4 hours after falling asleep. The young woman sat up, rubbed her eyes, consumed a ration pack and a container of coffee, and returned to her station. Total transition time, 8 minutes. How long can they sustain this? Vorn asked quietly. Rena checked the projections. They need 20 more hours to complete the full rescue, 68 hours total without normal rest. Impossible, the Felid doctor declared. For you, yes, Rena agreed. For them, she gestured at the screens showing human crews working in synchronized efficiency. I am beginning to think we defined impossible incorrectly. Patricia's voice came over the general channel, clear and determined despite the hours of strain. Rescue 1 to coordination. We have passed the halfway mark. 1,200 souls safe. 1,200 to go. We will bring them all home. Confirmed, Rescue 1, Vorn replied. The galaxy is watching. Then the galaxy better take notes, Patricia said. This is what humans do. We show up, we do the work, and we do not stop until everyone is safe. Rescue 1 out. Rena saved that audio file. Future xenobiologists would study it, analyzing the unwavering confidence in Patricia's voice. They would ask how humans maintained such certainty under impossible conditions. Rena already knew the answer. It was not biology alone, though human physiology played a role. It was not technology, though their ships were well designed. It was something deeper, something that could not be easily quantified. Humans had decided that 2,400 lives mattered more than their own comfort, their own exhaustion, their own biological limitations. And when humans decided something mattered, they became unstoppable. Hour 48 passed. Hour 50 began. The rescue continued. And in the observation deck, aliens from a dozen worlds watched humanity redefine what was possible. Hour 56 hit like a wall. Rena saw it in the data before it showed in performance. Human reaction time slipped by microseconds. Communication became more clipped, more focused. The jokes stopped. They are entering the critical phase, she announced to the observation deck. This is where biology catches up. Patricia sat in the pilot seat of Rescue 1, her 14th run approaching. Her eyes felt like sandpaper, and her shoulders carried a bone-deep ache. She had not mentioned either to anyone. The mission clock showed 12 hours remaining. 12 hours to save 480 more colonists. Rescue 1, I am seeing decreased response time on your last docking sequence. Vorn's voice carried genuine concern. Do you need to abort? Patricia checked her instruments, forcing her exhausted mind to process every reading with care. Negative, coordination. Implementing buddy check protocol now. Mike appeared at her shoulder, his own face showing the strain of 56 hours of sustained operations. Talk to me, Pat. Where are you at? Tired, Patricia admitted, but functional. Check my readings. Mike scanned her instrument panel, then checked the docking approach calculations. Your numbers are solid. You called the decreased response time before coordination did. That is good cognitive function. Then I stay in the seat, Patricia said. Then you stay in the seat, Mike confirmed. But I am watching you every second. This was the human way. Not pretending they were invulnerable, but acknowledging weakness and compensating for it. They covered each other's blind spots, trusted each other's judgment, and refused to let pride endanger the mission. On Rescue 2, James guided his ship through another cycle with methodical precision. His co-pilot, Linda, had just woken from her rest rotation. She brought him coffee, the bitter liquid that had become their collective lifeline. Rescue 2 to Rescue 1, James called. Pat, you sound tired. Tell me you are managing. Rescue 1 to Rescue 2, Patricia responded. I am managing you. Same. How is Holly's holding up on Rescue 3? Dr. Holly's answered for himself. Rescue 3 is operational, though I will admit, I understand why the Felids think we are insane. Quiet laughter rippled across the communication channel. The sound of humans acknowledging the absurdity of what they were doing while continuing to do it anyway. In the observation deck, the Felid doctor had stopped predicting imminent human collapse. The predictions had been wrong too many times. Instead, he studied the data with academic fascination, documenting a biological phenomenon that should not exist. Their cortisol levels have plateaued, he observed. Not dropped but stabilized at an elevated state. How is that sustainable? It is not, Rena replied honestly. Not long-term, but for a defined crisis period, human bodies can maintain emergency status for remarkable durations. She pulled up comparative data. Look at this. When a Thalassian enters hour 18 without rest, cognitive function drops by 38%. Humans at hour 56 show only 12% decline, and most of that is reaction speed, not decision-making ability. What is the biological mechanism? The insectoid physician asked. I am still determining that, Rena admitted. But I have a hypothesis. Humans evolved on a planet that never stopped trying to kill them. Climate extremes, predator pressure, resource scarcity. They had to develop the capacity to push through exhaustion because stopping meant death. Hour 60 arrived. 8 hours remained. 320 colonists still waited for rescue. The mining colony's administrator, a nervous Thalassian named Corin, transmitted from the surface. Human ships, we are detecting seismic activity from the approaching asteroids. The impact timeline may be accelerating. Copy that, Patricia responded immediately. All rescue ships, we are increasing pace. Coordination, update the schedule. Vorn's voice was tight. Rescue 1, you cannot increase pace. You are already operating beyond safe parameters. Coordination, we did not come this far to lose people in the last 8 hours, James interjected. We are cutting docking time by 90 seconds per cycle. It is manageable. 90 seconds did not sound like much. But 90 seconds per cycle, across multiple ships, across the remaining runs, added up to 3 additional cycles. 3 cycles meant 240 more colonists saved before the timeline collapsed. Approved, Vorn said quietly. God help you all. God helps those who help themselves, Dr. Hollies quoted. Rescue 3 implementing accelerated schedule now. The human ships moved faster. Rena watched in amazement as exhausted crews found reserves of energy and focus they should not possess. Patricia's hands flew across her controls with renewed precision. James executed a docking sequence that would have been impressive in a simulator, much less after 60 hours of continuous operations. Sarah, back on duty after her rest rotation, managed cargo loading with practiced efficiency. 80 colonists secure. Rescue 1 ready for departure. The pattern repeated. Dock, load, launch. Faster now, tighter margins, no room for error, and the humans made no errors. Hour 64. 4 hours to impact. 160 colonists remaining. The asteroid field loomed closer, visible now on long-range sensors. The mining colony transmitted images of the approaching destruction. Massive rocks, kilometers in diameter, on an inevitable collision course. All colonists are now at the evacuation staging area, Corin reported. We are ready for final extraction. Rescue 1 copies, Patricia said. 2 more cycles, we will get everyone. Her voice was hoarse from exhaustion and dehydration. Her hands trembled slightly on the controls, but her determination never wavered. In the observation deck, Rena stood transfixed. She had documented everything, filled databanks with biometric information and behavioral observations. None of it truly captured what she was witnessing. The Felid doctor stood beside her, equally mesmerized. They should have failed by now. Yes, Rena agreed. By every known principle of biology, they should have failed. But they have not. No, Rena said softly, they have not. Hour 66, 2 hours to impact, final runs beginning. Patricia guided Rescue 1 through its 17th cycle. The ship was tired too, systems strained from constant use, but like its crew, it kept functioning. Last group boarding now, Sarah reported. 80 souls coming home. James and Hollies completed their final runs simultaneously. The last colonists were loaded, secured, ready for evacuation. Rescue coordination, this is Rescue 1, Patricia said, her voice carrying across every channel. All 2,400 colonists are now aboard evacuation transports. The mining colony is clear. Mission accomplished. The observation deck erupted in shocked celebration. Aliens who had predicted failure now cheered human success. Vorn transmitted congratulations, his voice thick with emotion. But Rena did not celebrate yet. She watched the mission clock and the asteroid impact timeline. The human ships were still in the danger zone. They had saved everyone else. Now they had to save themselves. Hour 68. The asteroid field filled the view screen, a wall of destruction bearing down on the mining colony and everything near it. Patricia sat in the pilot's seat, 70 hours without real sleep, facing the most critical navigation challenge of her life. Rescue ships, this is coordination, Vorn transmitted. You have 12 minutes to clear the impact zone. The escape trajectory requires precision navigation through the debris field. If you miss the window, the gravitational disruption from the impacts will make escape impossible. Patricia pulled up the navigation calculations. The path threaded between asteroids with margins measured in meters. Any error meant collision. Any hesitation meant getting caught in the blast zone. Rescue 1 copies, she said, her voice steady despite the exhaustion weighing on every word. James Hollies, you see the path. Rescue 2 confirms, James replied. Tight squeeze but doable. Rescue 3 ready, Dr. Hollies added. Though I should mention that my medical opinion is that attempting precision navigation after 70 hours awake is clinically insane. Noted and ignored, Patricia said. Mike, give me a systems check. Mike scanned their instruments, his own exhaustion evident but controlled. Engines at 88% efficiency. Navigation systems optimal. Fuel sufficient for the maneuver with minimal reserve. Good enough, Patricia decided. Sarah, secure all cargo and strap in. This is going to be rough. The evacuation transports, carrying the 2,400 rescued colonists, were already accelerating to safety on a wider, slower trajectory. The human rescue ships had to take the dangerous route. Faster, tighter, riskier. In the observation deck, every alien present watched in absolute silence. Rena gripped the edge of her console, biometric displays showing human stress hormones spiking to levels that should trigger system shutdown. But the humans kept functioning. 10 minutes to impact, Vorn announced. Rescue ships, begin your escape sequence. Patricia's hands moved across the controls with practiced precision. 70 hours of exhaustion, and her muscle memory still held true. She fired the engines, feeling Rescue 1 surge forward. The asteroid field surrounded them immediately. Massive rocks tumbled past the view screen, close enough to see surface details. Patricia threaded between them, making micro-adjustments every few seconds. Rescue 2 entering the field, James reported. His ship appeared on Patricia's sensors, following her path exactly. Rescue 3 right behind you, Hollies confirmed. They moved in single file, each ship trusting the one ahead. Patricia led, her engineering mind calculating trajectories in real time. Behind her, James matched her movements with pilot's instinct. Hollies brought up the rear, his steady hands compensating for his lack of combat flight training. 7 minutes to impact, Vorn said. You need to increase speed. Patricia pushed the throttle forward. Rescue 1 accelerated, the asteroids becoming a blur of motion around them. One wrong move would end everything. An asteroid tumbled directly into their path. Patricia rolled the ship 90 degrees, threading through a gap barely wider than their hull. Follow my roll, she called to the others. James and Hollies executed the maneuver perfectly. 3 ships, moving as one, dancing through deadly space. 5 minutes to impact, Vorn's voice held barely controlled fear. Rescue ships, you need to be clear in 4 minutes or the shockwave will destroy you. Working on it, Patricia muttered through gritted teeth. Her hands flew across the controls, adjusting their course by fractions of degrees. Sweat ran down her face despite the cool cabin air. Sarah called out warnings from the sensor station. Large debris cluster ahead, 200 meters. I see it, Patricia confirmed. She banked hard left, then immediate right, weaving through the cluster. Behind her, James and Holly's mirrored every move. 3 minutes to impact, Vorn said. Rescue 1, your trajectory shows you reaching minimum safe distance with 18 seconds to spare. 18 seconds. Patricia had faced longer odds, but never after 70 hours of continuous operation. Never with this much at stake. Rescue ships, prepare for gravity assist maneuver around the outer moon, Patricia commanded. We will use its gravity well to slingshot out of the impact zone. It is our only chance to clear the shockwave. The maneuver required perfect timing and coordination. All 3 ships had to hit the gravity well at precisely the right angle, at precisely the right speed, or they would either crash into the moon or miss the assist entirely. 2 minutes to impact, Vorn announced. The moon loomed ahead, a barren rock that represented their only hope. Patricia calculated the approach vector in her head, too exhausted to trust the computers alone. Mike verified her math, his own tired mind catching an error that would have thrown them off by crucial degrees. Correction confirmed, Patricia said, executing approach in 30 seconds. James and Holly's maintained formation, their ships locked in perfect synchronization with Rescue 1. 1 minute to impact, Vorn said quietly. God be with you. Patricia hit the approach vector exactly on mark. Rescue 1 dove toward the moon, skimming its surface at an altitude that made Sarah gasp. The gravity well caught them, pulling the ship into a tight curve. Now, Patricia shouted, firing the engines at maximum thrust. The gravity assist worked. Rescue 1 whipped around the moon, accelerating beyond what their engines alone could achieve. James and Holly's followed milliseconds behind, their timing perfect. Behind them, the asteroid struck the mining colony. The impact was cataclysmic. Shockwaves radiated outward, a sphere of destruction expanding at terrifying speed. 45 seconds to shockwave contact, Mike called out. We are not going to make it. Yes, we are, Patricia said with absolute certainty. She pushed the engines past their rated maximum, coaxing every bit of thrust from the straining systems. The shockwave gained on them, visible on sensors as a wall of devastated space. 15 seconds, 10 seconds, 5 seconds. Rescue 1 crossed the minimum safe distance marker with 4 seconds to spare. James followed with 3 seconds. Holly's cleared with barely 2 seconds before the shockwave reached their previous position. The wave passed behind them, its force diminished by distance to a mere buffet of turbulence. The ships shook but held together. All rescue ships clear, Vorn transmitted, his voice breaking with relief. Mission complete, all colonists saved, all crews safe. Patricia sat back in her chair, her hands finally still. Rescue 1 confirms, we are clear. For a long moment, silence filled the communication channels. Then Sarah started laughing, the sound edged with hysteria and relief. Mike joined her. James whooped over the radio. Even Dr. Holly's made a sound that might have been either laughter or crying. Patricia looked at her crew, at their exhausted faces and trembling hands. They had done the impossible, again. Rescue 1 to coordination, she said softly. Requesting permission to return to station. We could really use some sleep now. Permission granted, Vorn replied. Welcome home, heroes. As Patricia set the return course, she felt the adrenaline finally draining from her system. 72 hours of sustained operation were catching up. Her hands shook. Her vision blurred slightly. The off switch, dormant throughout the entire crisis, finally began to engage. Sarah, you have the con, Patricia said. Wake me when we dock. She was asleep before Sarah could respond. Behind her, Mike slumped in his chair, unconscious. James and Holly's reported similar states on their ships. The humans who had refused to stop for 72 hours were now dropping into sleep with the same absolute commitment they had brought to the rescue. In the observation deck, Rena watched the human ships make their way slowly back to the station. She saved every piece of data, every recording, every biometric reading. Future generations would study what happened here. They did it, the Felid doctor said in wonder. They actually did it. Yes, Rena agreed. And now we need to understand how and what it means for the galaxy. 1 week later, Ambassador David Reed stood before the full Galactic Council in the Grand Assembly Chamber. He had slept for 16 hours straight after the rescue, then spent the following days in medical evaluations and diplomatic preparations. Now, well-rested and clear-headed, he faced the representatives of 47 species. The chamber fell silent as the council director, an ancient Thalassian with silver skin, called the session to order. We gather to address humanity's application for full membership in the Galactic Council and to discuss the recent events at Mining Colony 7. Reed remained standing, calm and professional. In the gallery above, Patricia, James, Dr. Hollies, and the other human crew members watched. They wore their rescue mission patches with quiet pride. Dr. Rena approached the central podium, carrying a massive data archive. Honored Council, I have completed my study of human biology and the rescue operation. What we witnessed was not an anomaly, but a fundamental characteristic of human evolution. She activated the holographic display. Images of Earth appeared, showing its harsh environments, extreme weather, and dangerous wildlife. Humans evolved on a planet that demanded constant adaptation. Their bodies developed remarkable endurance capabilities as a survival mechanism. The Felid doctor joined her. I initially classified human behavior as a medical emergency. I was wrong. Humans possess evolved systems for sustained performance under stress that exceed anything we have documented in other species. Rena pulled up biometric data from the rescue operation. Humans can consciously override their exhaustion signals when circumstances require. They call it determination, willpower, or simply doing what is necessary. Physiologically, they manage stress hormones, metabolize stimulants effectively, and can function on minimal sleep for extended periods. But the most remarkable aspect, the Felid doctor added, is not their biology alone. It is their choice. Humans could stop. They possess the biological capacity to recognize exhaustion and cease activity. They simply refuse to do so when others need them. A reptilian counselor spoke up. Is this not dangerous? Does it not risk their health? Yes, Dr. Holly said, standing in the gallery. It absolutely risks our health. That is why we do it sparingly in genuine emergencies. We are not advocating for constant sleep deprivation. We are demonstrating that when the choice is between our comfort and someone else's survival, we choose their survival. Reed took over the presentation. The Galactic Council faces threats that cannot always be solved within standard operational parameters. Pirates, natural disasters, equipment failures. Sometimes, the solution requires going beyond what is comfortable or conventionally safe. He gestured to the rescue crews in the gallery. These individuals saved 2,400 lives because they were willing to push past their biological limitations. Not because they are reckless, but because they understood the stakes and chose to act. Vorn, the rescue coordinator, stood to address the council. I spent the entire operation expecting human crews to collapse. They never did. More importantly, they implemented safety protocols superior to our standard procedures. They monitored each other, rotated crew proactively, and maintained performance standards throughout. This was not reckless behavior. This was exceptional operational discipline under extreme conditions. The council director studied the data thoughtfully. Dr. Renna, what are your recommendations regarding human integration into galactic society? Renna chose her words carefully. Humans should be exempt from standard rest cycle requirements, but required to designate rest liaisons who monitor crew health. They should be primary responders for endurance-critical emergencies, and their physiological capabilities should be studied further, as they may inform medical advances for other species. I propose formal classification, the Felid doctor added. Humans as endurance specialists. Their capabilities fill a critical gap in galactic emergency response. The council deliberated for 2 hours. Reed waited patiently, knowing that the decision would shape humanity's relationship with the galaxy for generations. Finally, the council director announced the verdict. The Galactic Council votes to grant humanity full membership, with special provisions recognizing their unique capabilities. Furthermore, we establish the Human Endurance Response Teams, integrating human crews into the galactic emergency system. The chamber erupted in approval. 47 species, recognizing that humanity brought something precious to the galactic community. Not superior technology or ancient wisdom, but the stubborn refusal to give up when lives hung in the balance. Reed bowed respectfully. On behalf of humanity, we accept with honor and gratitude. Later that evening, Renna found Patricia in the station's observation deck, looking out at Earth in the distance. The engineer had recovered fully from the rescue operation, though she admitted the first few days of rest had been rough. Dr. Renna, Patricia greeted her warmly. Come to check my biometrics again. Renna smiled. No, I have all the data I need. I wanted to ask you a question as a person rather than as a scientist. Go ahead. During the rescue at hour 70, when you were executing that precision navigation through the asteroid field, Renna said slowly, did you ever think about stopping, about saving yourselves and accepting the losses? Patricia considered the question seriously. Honestly, the thought never crossed my mind, not because I am heroic or special, but because those were people who needed help and we could provide it. The decision was simple. Simple, Renna repeated. 2,400 lives, 72 hours of exhaustion, life-threatening navigation, and you call the decision simple. Not easy, Patricia clarified. Simple, there is a difference. Easy means without difficulty. Simple means clear, unambiguous. We knew what needed doing, we knew we could do it, so we did it. That is human nature. This human nature, Renna said thoughtfully. It is both inspiring and terrifying. Do all humans possess it? Patricia shrugged. Most of us, in the right circumstances, we are not superhuman. We are just stubborn. And when people are counting on us, that stubborn streak becomes something powerful. Renna pulled out her datapad, making one final note in her research log. Human endurance is not purely biological. It is cultural, psychological, and chosen. They could stop. They simply refuse to when others need them. That is a good summary, Patricia said. What will you do with all your research? Share it with the galaxy, Renna replied, so that other species understand what it means when humans say they will help. It is not a casual promise. It is an absolute commitment. Patricia smiled. We do take our commitment seriously. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the stars. The mining colony survivors were settling into new homes. The rescue crews had received commendations from a dozen grateful species, and humanity had proven that their greatest strength was not technology or weapons, but their refusal to abandon anyone in need. Dr. Renna, Patricia said eventually, thank you for trusting us to try. Thank you for proving that trust was warranted, Renna replied. The galaxy is better for having humans in it, even if you do terrify our medical professionals. Patricia laughed. We will try to minimize the heart attacks we cause. No promises, though. Renna filed her final report that night. The title was simple but accurate. human endurance capabilities, and their implications for galactic emergency response. The report would be studied in xenobiology courses for centuries, referenced in emergency planning protocols, and cited whenever someone questioned human determination. But the real story was not in the data or the biological explanations. The real story was 2,400 colonists who went home to their families because a handful of exhausted humans decided that 72 hours without sleep was a reasonable price to pay for lives. The galaxy learned an important lesson. Humans have an off switch. They possess the biological capacity to stop, to rest, to acknowledge their limits. They just refuse to use it when someone needs saving, and the galaxy was safer for it. In the crew quarters, Patricia fell asleep with a smile on her face. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new problems to solve, new people who might need help, and when that time came, she and her fellow humans would be ready. Not because they had to be, but because that was simply what humans did. They showed up, they did the work, and they did not stop until everyone was safe. No off switch, not when it mattered. That was the human way.